Why did you want to do the 4th round of breathwork just then?
Dude, when I've done breathwork, because obviously when we normally do it, or you do it with other guests, you do like the 3 Wim Hof breathing. And when I've done it, I just started doing that. But I was like, how deep can you actually go with it? So then I just started going my own breath, no like background noise, no meditation, no nothing like that. And just like see how deep you can go in like the silence. And dude, I've had the biggest shift in like emotion from like angry, upset, envious, jealous, like all these emotions, and then gone into like a breath work and gone super deep. I think we did like 10 rounds or something. And then on the 10th round, just held. Like just was like, I'm going to hold for as long as I possibly can. But it didn't even feel like, when your body like surrenders to that like shock of, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, when you go underwater and obviously you need your breath, you're going to feel that emotion. It was whatever happened in my body, I went that deep that that feeling of stress and worry about like death kind of faded away. And I just felt like I sunk into myself. And it was like the most euphoric feeling and change from like angry, jealous, sad, all these different emotions to then just like completely at peace with like myself and who I was. And I come out of it and started laughing. And when like you have your real laugh, like I feel like that's the most honest, genuine version of yourself is when you laugh like super deeply. And I got it back and I'm like, when you notice like I haven't laughed like that in a long time and then you finally do again, and it was like it unlocked that for me like through the breath work. So yeah, I always recommend people to do it, man, because it can completely like shift your mood from whatever it may be, sad, depressed, angry, to like completely at peace with yourself and realizing like life's all good.
Eugene that I had on the show in your studio, he was saying that thing around you can go without food for weeks, you can go without water for weeks, but you can only go without breath for minutes. He's like, I think we should probably breathe correctly. What do you think the states are in your life when you are in that state of like comparison, fear, stress, sadness? Is there a certain phase in your life, or is there something happening in your life that's making you feel this sense of comparison and all of those things in your life?
I don't know, man. It's tricky because I know you go through like different seasons of obviously like feeling those different emotions and learning so much from them. Like we always talk about like you don't know if something's good or bad until like it plays out, and not being so caught up on reacting to certain things. But it's tricky, man. Like you're always going to be going through some kind of shit you've got to like figure out. And it's so funny do you ever look at like, I'll be happy when I get there. Oh, I'll be happy when I get that thing. And then obviously you can get it. And then you kind of like that next thing, but you're kind of in this state of constantly chasing something. And then if you're not obviously to where you think you should be, you can kind of like, I guess, put yourself down or have that self-doubt around it.
Do you think when you're progressing in something that you really love and that you get excited about and you're progressing at a rate that you're happy with, you compare a lot less?
I think so, but I guess that's like when you've got that purpose, hey? Like when you found something to like put purpose into and like you've got like your goal, I think as long as you're on that path, you'll be pretty happy. But then you still set those like invisible goals, or if you don't reach, you kind of will determine your happiness at that point. Did you find that even in like growing this or growing anything, it's like, just say for the podcast, it's like at what amount of listens are you going to be happy? Or what amount of downloads are you going to be happy? And that metric is constantly changing from like 5,000 to 20,000. It's this whole idea with that or with money or with whatever. It's like where's happiness on that ladder of, because it's always going to change and you're going to reach that goal and then it's going to be on to the next. And I was talking to a friend the other day about how when you think about like the journey you go on, everyone's like, it's not who you become, but it's like so many of us aren't actually in the present moment of what's going on. And like, I feel like I know I'm not my happiest person when I'm in that state of like what's next and what's coming, and you realize that it's like, what do I have now? Like, where am I now? And kind of taking a breath.
A lot of the time you're comparing, your happiness is tied to what you've experienced in the past, and it needs to be better than that. So you hit 5,000 downloads in a week, and you were going a couple of months ago when you were hitting 1,000 in a week, you were so wrapped, and then you get to 5,000 a week and you're ecstatic and excited, but then it goes down to 4,000 and 3,000 and you're like depressed.
Yeah.
But then like a month ago you were getting 1,000 and you were wrapped.
Yeah.
I think it's comparative to what you've achieved in the past. And that's why a little bit of money for a millionaire isn't a lot of money, because they're a millionaire. And so it's all relative. You've got in your Instagram bio, stay genuine and everything will naturally reciprocate or remove itself. What's that mean?
Dude, just like be you. Be like honest to yourself and just be you. Like I think so many of us, and it comes back to chasing those likes and that money and that status, or that they try and put different shoes on and be a different person. But like at the end of the day, if you're just being you, like all those right people attract you. Like do you ever find that it's like I'm living in my values, I'm feeling like the best version of me, and all this good stuff keeps happening and good people keep coming in. Like you become so much more magnetic when you're doing that. But it's tricky, man. Like even like I feel like sometimes it's really hard to show up and be like genuinely me on like especially social media. Like I talked about before, I've recorded like 2 solo podcasts and like YouTube things talking about how I had my accident like last year. So obviously like body's pretty good now, getting back to me. But one thing that happened that I didn't expect was when I was doing these videos, obviously in a neck brace, in a bad way, recovering, like they're like so many people were so kind and like outreached and like obviously putting kindness out there because they felt for me, but it made me feel like really like hurt and like wounded and like down. So I started putting out these videos and then everyone was always like sympathetic and nice. But then I just started to like push me down this way of like feeling different and feeling like weak and like I wanted to get that back. So then I just stopped posting videos of myself like talking about like what had happened. I kind of went cold with it. And then since that point, I've never got that back to like put myself out there more, even though it's funny, like you say, I've got the podcast, but it's like this setting or like doing a podcast seems different to me than like the stories or whatever that I was doing when I was injured because of like the sympathy people were giving me. Because I fully like shut myself inside and like didn't want to go outside because every time I'd see someone, they'd be down. And I think that's a big part of like what we try and do is obviously like spread a good emotion so people feel good. So imagine creating the opposite because someone feels for you. So every time I went to the markets in Palmy and I was just like, this is like start of the injury, like neck brace, not in a good way, hadn't left the house in ages. Cooper Chapman was like, come to the markets and just like hang out and see people. And it was funny because like, Elodie Pullen, she was there and she saw me and she was just like when you see someone that like feels like, someone that's felt a lot of pain and they see you and they like see what pain you're going through and like someone that's like super,
they can feel that.
You can see it, yeah. And she looked at me and she was like, oh, what happened? And you could tell that she was like really caring. And it fucked me up, hey, because I could see like creating that negative emotion in someone. And it's just because obviously she was caring about someone that was hurt. But then I fully like locked myself inside because I didn't want to make people feel like that. And then I didn't want to put myself out to the world because I was like, fuck, I don't want to bring people down from this injury. And I guess that's coming out of it now. It's like I need to, like that's like the last, like I feel like the body's coming back, the mind's coming back, everything else. But it's like I need to put myself out there and be more of that person.
What do you think's holding you back from getting back to that state of putting yourself out there?
Oh, that's just not.
You're conscious of it.
I'm conscious of it. I see it. That's the biggest thing, man. Like I'm self-aware of like what I'm not doing. And I know me as a person, when I put myself out, it's normally when I'm like feeling myself and kind of build on that. But I guess a lot lately, like haven't felt fully me or I haven't felt like the best version of me. So kind of when people feel like that, they shut away a little bit more than what they normally would. It's just because I guess you see a certain version of someone, you think they're a certain way, but then like obviously everyone's going through heaps of different things, good and bad, that you wouldn't notice. But yeah, it's funny because you wouldn't want to like broadcast to the world like negativity. And I guess obviously the injury wasn't intentional negativity, but it still kind of like sucked. So I kind of just got into that thing of like, I never want to post anything to bring people down, but it's like going through something like that is a reality that it's like, it is what it is kind of thing.
Do you think it brings them down though? Because people love, they love to be there when you're down in like when you're visually in that way where they go, okay, you were in a bad state. You mentioned you got all this sympathy, you got all these messages, all these people started wishing you the best. I don't think it brings them down because it's not like it's their problems. They get on with their day and move on, but you can't walk. At the end of the day, it's like they're your problems.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything else from that injury that you're still hanging on to today?
It's like little bits of nerve damage. Like I'm so lucky, man. Like so lucky. And
it was quite severe.
Just the feeling of being like, I'm never gonna walk again. Like to have that like that real thought in your body for like, even though it was only 20 minutes, but to just be like, man, you like 4 days to go and you did this. And it was just like, I told you about how the 3 emotions I felt just circled.
No.
So it happened, and obviously I was conscious the whole time. I'll give you the video so you can play the video and then have this. But yeah, I hit a tree going like 35 k's an hour, and it was 4 days before I was supposed to retire from a 17-year career. So I was like, okay, I'm done. And then it was like, obviously that happened, but I see it happened because, and I've chatted about this a fair bit, but like I fell out of love with it, but I was still doing it. And I think if you fall out of love with something and you continue in it, knowing that, it becomes so dangerous. And it was dangerous for me in the fact I hit a tree and had a spinal cord injury. But how many people do you know that are doing something and their heart's not in it, whether it's relationship, job, friendship, and like how long are you going to go down that path before someone gets hurt or something goes wrong? So it's like, as soon as you fall out of love with something, like get out. And I know I was kind of on the process of getting out. Like I obviously had one more race because I felt it. But even when that crash happened, man, like I didn't want to be there. I was like, I'm done. Why am I here? And it was funny. I was at the top of the hill and I wasn't even going to do the run because it was about to go into qualifying. The track was going to dry up. So I said to my mechanic, I think I'm done. He's like, just go for like a roll down run and like just scope it out. And I sat in this chair for ages and I had like 5 minutes to go and I was like, fuck it, I'll go, and went and did it. And then when I hit the tree, I was like completely paralyzed for 15, 20 minutes, I reckon. And then like the emotions that swirled in my head was like the most angry I've ever been at myself because I had 4 days to go. The most scared I've ever been because I'm like, fuck, I'm never going to walk again. My life is completely changed and shifted. And I just thought about all the things I could never do and the burden I was going to be and all this. And then the third was like complete and utter peace. It was like the most at peace I've ever been. And that's why when we do the breath work and you kind of drop it in that place, it's obviously like shutting your body off and being in your mind. And I think about when obviously we're going to die, I think obviously that's what's going to happen. Everything's going to shut up and you're kind of going to go into your mind. And it's like when you're in that state, you kind of surrender to everything. And I guess that's the whole idea of when you die. It's like kind of like the breath work, but obviously you go further and then there's nothing. But I think you kind of like, it's probably going to be like the most euphoric, nice feeling you'll ever have in your life. And I felt like when I was paralyzed on the ground, it kind of went to a similar place of that. And then those 3 emotions would just cycle around constantly. So I was like the most scared, the most angry, and the most at peace, all within this window of like 20 minutes and then just circling around. And I guess, with the breath work we just did, it's like you can go so deep with that and kind of realize that, I don't know, I think it takes you to a place where I stopped being scared of death because I feel like in those situations is like the closest you're going to get. And it just feels like you're so at peace and you realize that it's why worry about something you have no idea what it is really. Like I'd rather look at death and be like, it's going to be amazing. I hope I live a lot of life before I get there, but stop being scared of something that might be the best thing ever when it actually does happen. And I'm not saying like go out and do anything like that, but just.
What does that result in terms of actions on the day-to-day with having that lens and that belief?
Just less stress, man. Like you meet so many people and they're so scared about dying and it's like, you don't know what it is. It's like, if you don't know what something is, why worry about it? Like it's like you get imagine if I brought a box in here and said, are you scared of what's in the box? And you're like, well, I don't know what's in the box. I'm like, but he's scared. I was like, well, no, I don't know. It's like, just use that logic with that. And it's
same with everything in life though. It's not just death. I've been thinking a lot recently around how the little things people sweat over, how they are at so much less peace than they could be because of these things that they sweat over. Like an example I'll give is money, right? And this is a very sensitive topic. A lot of people do not like when I talk about having an abundance mindset because if people aren't really, if they don't have much money, it's quite a sensitive thing to say, oh, come on, mate. Like it's all good. It's fine. Like I understand that's sensitive. But for me, when I was broke, I didn't worry about money. And now that I have some money, I don't worry about money. And I am less stressed and fundamentally I'm more happy when I don't worry about money, for good or for bad. I don't worry about how much is in there if there's a lot, and I don't worry about how much is in there if there's not. I'm a bit numb to it. It's down at me. It's a transactional commodity. It comes and goes. I'm so much more at peace, and I have such a higher level of happiness because I'm not worrying about that. And that's just one thing. That's that. But like if you look about all the little petty things, like the viral clip that don't sweat the small stuff, it's all small stuff.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about those things, which by the way, was so viral. But like when you talk about not sweating the small stuff, realizing it's all small stuff is going like that. Those little things do not matter, and they're actually stripping away your happiness. And the thing is the small stuff, it's probably not even got anything to do with you. It's like everyone else's problems, and you on board these little things that don't matter to them, and they're their problems, so they shouldn't matter to you. But then by doing that, it fundamentally lowers the amount of happiness that you have in your life. And I think you believe in a similar frame of like trying not to sweat all these little things that don't actually matter. None of it's really real. If you guys are a regular listener of the Pocket Podcast, you would know that I absolutely love Switch Nutrition and all of their products, and I've been promoting them since the very, very start. And my love for Switch Nutrition has just gone to the next level with their brand new product, Sleep Plus. This is a designated sleep formula. It is made to help wind you down, calm the central nervous system down, get you into a more restful state so you can fall into that deep and REM sleep sooner into bed, resulting in a more restful and meaningful sleep so you can wake up ready to attack the next day's activities. I've been loving this thing. There is the tropical flavor, which I love, with a bit of ice and some cold water, or if I'm feeling like a hot chocolate, I'll have the chocolate flavor. Overall, it's amazing and you'll get results, and it's been going crazy all around the internet and online now with their amazing reviews all across the globe. So if you guys want to try out Switch Nutrition, you can go to the link in the description or the show notes below, and you can use code Chris Griffin and you'll get 15% off your entire order. Alternatively, go to switchnutrition.com.au and use code Chris Griffin for 15% off your entire order, and you can try out the Sleep Plus alongside all of their other amazing products. They will not disappoint. But let's get right back to the episode.
You got to distance yourself from your reaction to things. Like we see people that are so reactive, something happens, they react instantly. It's like looking at something that happens, like just say that vase fell over off the table and just going, I wonder why that happened. Instead of looking like, oh, fuck that vase. You know what I mean? You can use it with anything. And it's like not sweating the small stuff kind of comes from the whole idea that things are going to change that you can't control, big and small. If you just go with the flow and let it happen and don't just like obviously act upon it in a positive way, like look at it and go, well, how can we make something good out of this? But don't just jump on something like, oh, fuck, that happened again. Oh, and that happened again. And you're like, why is that happening? How can we do it differently? Like, what can we go in a different direction? It's like, make a plan about stuff. Don't just react to it. I see so many of my friends that are even can be reactive and things. And I just see it. I'm like, you chose to be that way in that moment. You saw this thing happen. And within that less than a second, you've made a judgment call and acted upon that with anger. And it's like, you can just have that hit you and just go, wait, how do I actually feel about that? And how is getting angry at that going to make anything fucking better? I can just let that go and go, oh, sweet, on to the next. It's like just not being worried about things when you don't know what it is. It's like we think we know all these different things. Like that person's angry because of such and such. Like they could be angry about something you have no idea about. So instead of looking at that and just throwing it back, go, like, ask them, like, what's happening, man? You good? Like, is everything sweet?
Yeah.
And like, put the olive branch out there. Like, start it off with like, okay, let's not just throw fire back at this.
I hate dwelling on things. And so when I strip it back and go, I don't want to dwell on things, most of the time, the things that you dwell on are the things that you can't control. It's in the past.
Yeah.
And so the reason you keep dwelling on it is because it's in the past. Because it's in the past, you can't control it. You can't change it. And the problem with it is if you're getting caught up on that, it's not going to change. So you're going to continue to dwell on it. The only way you can actually overcome this state of dwell is by focusing on the things that you can control. And that's literally all it is. I think there's this dwelling concept that I was talking to. There was someone asked me a question today actually. She said, what has been the biggest lesson that you've learnt this year? Which is like quite a broad question, but something came to my mind like straight away when she asked me this. And the funny thing is it's just slipped my mind what I was going to say. but
biggest lesson this
in the
year.
moment something came to me.
Biggest lesson? I was going to ask you, what's the biggest lesson this podcast has taught you?
The biggest lesson the podcast has taught me is that, well, there's probably two sides. There's how people, there's people that there's two things. The one thing is the amount of work that is required to bring this thing to life.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. Preach it.
Is like the whole thing with the iceberg and all the part of the iceberg.
Dude, it's a
below
full-time
the water.
gig, man. To have
It's a full-time
high
gig.
quality.
It's a full-time gig.
Yeah.
And
we grinded at this thing for a long time.
And you don't realize that getting into it and how expensive it is, how much it takes, all the rest of it. But the other thing which is really cool is just this reminder that people follow people.
Yeah.
And my followers haven't grown dramatically from my personal page, from when I started the podcast and where I am now. It's not like blown up. My page has gained a little bit of followers, but not like dramatically, right? However, the amount of times I get stopped on the street from when I started the show to now is like through the roof.
The podcast.
And the realization is the podcast is like, and all you amazing people listening to the show, like it's the greatest thing ever. But being able to listen for hours on end every single week, and sometimes people, and you would find this, as they discover your podcast, get hooked and they listen to 8 episodes a week and they just start from the first one and just go up the list.
Yeah.
And it's this realization that like people follow people, people want connection, people want to relate, they want to resonate with people, they want to feel like they're a part of something, they want to learn, they want to grow. And a podcast does precisely that, whilst also I get to learn from all the greatest people, which is great. What's taught you? What have you learned from your podcast?
I think just the fact that you realize that everyone's got such a unique story. And if you just ask a few of the right questions, they'll share that. I think I was lucky enough to travel a lot when I was younger. And then obviously with the World Cup racing and everything, I've seen a lot of the world. And I think as a young kid, because I grew up in like country Vic, where like I would say that's where you're going to find like more like racism and stuff like that, and people just a bit rough around the edges, but it is what it is. But I got to travel so much as a kid, and I think I just saw so many different ways of living and being. So I always had that idea that like people are just people. Like I don't look at anyone kind of differently. And I think to do something like this, you've got to be like that. And doing the podcast, you realize like they might look rough on the outside, or they might look like a princess or whoever it may be, like models or athletes or whoever I talk to, but like everyone's just like generally good people, and like you kind of dig a bit deeper, and it's made me dig a bit deeper into people in like the real world as well. And listen, man, like actually listen. Like people talk to their friends all the time, not listening. They're just waiting to give them advice that they would do so they can then go, well, I told you to do that kind of thing. It's like some people just want to hear, like they just want to be heard and they want to be seen. So I think the podcast is like taught me to like hear and see people a lot better. Yeah,
Cooper Chapman said, listen, don't just wait to talk. That's the one that he said that to me early days in the pod, and that's such a great emphasis. I'm bummed that I can't remember the biggest lesson that I've learned this year. But anyway, I'm going to read something else that you wrote on your Instagram. You said, note to self, not Matthew McConaughey, but note to self, you're not too old to start over, but you're too old to keep doing the same shit that isn't working over and over again. Talk to me about that.
Oh man, girls, hey, like going around in the same circle. I've been thinking about this because it's like, you know, you get this whole idea that you like try and be this nice guy, and I would say like I've tried to play that role in a way, but you can kind of come across as like the nice guy can get shifted around, and everyone's like, oh, but he's a nice guy, he does this and he does that. But I felt like me as a person, because like I love meeting a girl and like putting my energy and everything into that. Like I love it. I think it's great. I want to travel with someone. I want to have someone to do stuff with. Like I think that's amazing. But every time I found a girl, I've kind of like pedestaled them and put them in front of everything else. And I've looked at it in my career, dude, and like my career has like, I wanted to see my career without a girl, and not that the girl did anything wrong. I was just so fixated on girls that I didn't put all my energy into the racing. The 1 year I was single in 2019, I had my best year, and I enjoyed the racing so much more because I wasn't worried about someone living back in Australia. I was never present when I was competing. I was always half in, half back in Australia with a girl. And I got so fixated on that I think it affected my career pretty badly. But learning from that now, not doing the same shit, is like women want you to have a purpose. They want you to have a goal, and they want to see you going after it with everything you fucking got. And they want to compliment and help you do that. And I think in the past I'd find a girl and then I put all my energy into her, and she's like, yes, you're doing this, but I'm coming before that. And as much as like women obviously want love and affection and care, they want to be a part of what you're doing, not all of what you're doing. I don't think, and I can see that reverse when I've had girlfriends or girls seeing me and you become everything. And it's like, fuck, like I want to be a part of your life, but I don't want to be all of it, especially not like early on. So I can see kind of like what I was doing wrong, but it's just consciously being aware of it and like putting energy, like I want to put energy into someone, but it's like obviously the process of like how quickly you do that and how much, and not taking away your goals or your ambitions or your things that like fill you up and make you you.
And I think if a really attractive trait in a man is to have drive, ability to provide those main pillars, I would say that it's more important that the girl isn't everything in a guy's life rather than the guy is everything in the girl's life. Because if the girl, and what's attractive for me, is someone that wants a family, wants to raise kids, wants to be this person that's looking after the household, like if you're all over me and because that, like your purpose and what you really want is a family and build that, then great. But like as a man, I think what's really attractive in a guy is what they're striving towards, what they're doing. Are they driven? Are they springing out of bed in the morning with excitement with whatever they're working on? They're making money, they're providing. It's so important to not pedestal anyone.
You want to be at the same level. You want to be at the same level all the time.
You know what's interesting? I'm going to share because we're talking about girls. Why not? So it's a girl I'm seeing, and it's fresh. And before things were getting like serious, she was talking to another guy for a couple of months, and she was still talking to him when we met. And basically, she stopped talking to him when we met, and then her birthday came, whatnot, flowers rocked up at her door, all the stuff while we've been talking. And anyway, things progressed down the line. I'm getting to the story now. And basically, he's coming to Australia and seeing wants to see her.
Yeah.
Right? And she's telling me this. And I'm like, fucking oath, go see him.
What?
And I said, yeah, you should definitely go on a couple of dates with him. And
how'd that make you feel though?
Made me feel great. I got excited. And
what happens if she slept with him?
Sorry?
What happens if she slept with him?
Perfect. She's not the wife.
Yeah, you kind of like, you'll know.
So
you don't want to restrict anyone.
The thing is, what's interesting about this is the reason I'm tying this in is because you're talking about not pedestaling things.
Yeah.
Like when she said that, I truly got excited because I went, it can go one of two ways. She goes on a couple of dates with this guy that she's been speaking with for way longer than me. She's been speaking to him for months, goes and catches up with him, X, Y, and Z. And they haven't met as well, by the way. But like, because in overseas, she goes and speaks to him, hangs out, goes on a couple of dates, X, Y, and Z, spends some time with him. It will go one of two ways. She will go, oh, he's the one. He's better than Chris, which is the first way. The second way is she goes, oh, this doesn't feel right. Like, I want to be with Chris. It's probably going to be the latter. Because my confidence there, and I voiced that to her.
Yeah.
And she was really shocked because she was really nervous bringing this up,
yeah.
that this guy was coming into town. And I'm like, no, like this is great. Yeah. This is exciting. And I think what that triggers in someone's mind from a girl's standpoint is like that I'm secure and that I don't need them. Yeah. And it's taking away that pedestal thing. And I truly meant it. It wasn't like a say this to sound good or anything. I truly meant everything. Like I am excited that because then when she comes back after being with him, she doesn't have a what if this guy was great. She's certain. She's going to be way closer to me off the back of it.
Yeah.
And that comes down to just removing anything off a pedestal and going like, do that. Sure, go for it. And if things don't go to plan, then we're going to be closer off it. And if they do go well, then we're ending things before we dig a hole too deep.
Yeah, you just know.
What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, I love that. I think that's great. I think I was thinking about this other day. You know, as obviously you've got masculine and feminine energy, and like you'd say masculine is more like a dog and feminine is more like a cat. Like think about if you like met a cat and picked it up and was just trying to like give it love or trying to hold on to it when it's trying to go. What's it going to do? It's going to scratch the shit out of you. It's going to fuck your day up. if you just like are there, give it like little bits of time, let it. When I grew up, I grew up with cats, and you just realize that like a dog was always going to love you, a dog's always going to be there, but like a cat, you actually have to like kind of earn it. And that's like a woman, like you need to actually show that she can do whatever she wants, and you're there to complement her life, not there to like control and like hold it down and stop it from doing those things. Like you said, it's like you're going to know. It's like the whole thing, it's like what's right won't pass you by.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, do what you want. Like it's your life, live it.
And honestly, if you're not in that lens of how I just explained, because I was thinking about it, I was just like reflecting myself on that, because it wasn't a planned thing. It just came out of my mouth. It was very out of the blue. It was random, right? But like I was thinking about it and I go, I've not been in a relationship or anything serious since my ex, which we broke up in May last year. So like 18 months or whatever, a bit over 18 months. And from then, I've just spent so much time working on myself, building up myself to a point where I'm extremely proud of who I am and who I look at in the mirror. I'm very happy with a lot of the areas of my life. And I was reflecting on it and I'm going, the only way I can say that to this girl with a straight face, and I truly mean it, is that I've got to be pretty full and secure within myself to be willing to walk away from the relationship. I've got to be willing to be able to do that, to be able to say that. And I think ultimately in a relationship, what we need to get to a point at is that we're full and everyone else is a bonus. Because when we're full within ourselves, we can't be broken as much. And being able to have these things in our life where we can actually show up in the best way possible, be full within ourselves, and know that our partner is a bonus to that. And like, I think it's just a great representation of that. And going like, if you go and see this guy, this is only going to benefit the situation, regardless of the outcome. Yeah. And it excites me. What are you going to
know? So as you were saying that, I saw this quote the other day, and it like goes off your point, but it says, your self-love needs to be stronger than your desire to be loved. It's hard, but it's where it needs to start.
Yeah. I had that written down here.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. We try and just get love. We use like love and affection from other people as this little dopamine hit of drugs. And it's like, again, how I said I'd like pedestal these girls, and I always needed that. Like that was like, I would think I'd be my happiest self when there'd be a girl in the picture. And you realize that you're just using that as like a dopamine. And obviously like you have affection and care. It's not like I'm just hitting girls that I don't like, but like you start to date someone and then like you feel like you need it. Like there's such a difference between wanting someone and needing someone. And like girls want to be wanted. They don't want to be needed. And once you get that needy energy and you kind of like, you realize that you like in your head, you can't go without them, where really like all you need is you. And if that person wants to leave, like leave the door always open, but don't just shut it because they want to go and do them. Like you try and control.
I remember my biggest lesson now. It's come back to me. She asked me what my biggest lesson of the year was, and I said straight away without even thinking, I said, the less you chase, the more you receive. And it's just tying perfectly into this thing of going, the less I chase, the less I need things. So basically, the less I need things, the less of a value I put on the things. So when I don't put a value on the thing, I remove it from the pedestal. So when I remove it from the pedestal, it becomes easier to get because things that are on a pedestal are hard to get. So ultimately, the less I want to chase and need things, the easier and the more things are going to flow into my life. And that's been an emphasis this year because I have said on a podcast in your studio with Ollie Moore, I said I had Hinge and I said I downloaded Hinge. And my reasoning behind downloading Hinge and having the dating app was because I wanted to meet, I was speaking to you about this, I think. I wanted to meet people that didn't know me. I was like, I don't want people in my DMs that know me because they're treating me differently. I want someone that doesn't know me. So I would speak to these girls on Hinge and then I wouldn't even give them my Instagram, I'd give them my phone number. And I was trying to do all this thing in search of finding a girl. And I remember I told Ollie this on a podcast and he's like, mate, delete that. You don't need it. And I just thought, I don't need it. That's the problem with it. And I deleted Hinge straight after that podcast. And when I deleted Hinge, what came with that was this frame in my mind that I don't need anything and stop chasing things. And it was crazy. It was like this switch overnight where this inflow of quality women and people that I was that I was interested in came into my life.
Yeah.
Or I started showing up at a cafe and I'd meet someone that I liked, or at the gym or whatever it was.
You're more present, yeah.
And I think the conclusion I came to is when you need something, you give off this disgusting smell and people can smell it.
Yeah.
And they hate the smell. And so removing that need for anything in life, whether that's money, whether that's like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Money, women is probably the main two ones that people get caught up with, or money, relationships.
Yeah, status.
Love. You need love.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I think what happens with that as well is you settle for less.
Dude, needing love, like I said, is like grabbing that cat. Like what happens when you try and like hold a cat? What does it do? It just goes crazy and scratches you. And like that is what happens with love in your love life if you like try and chase it and hold on to it.
Yeah.
Like you said, but it's your body language as well, man. Like you said, you like give off an odor. Like just how you act with people, how you make eye contact, how you smile, how you frown, how you look at people. Like it's so obvious when you see someone that's happy because they're like giving off, like they're literally radiating. You see them and they just like have some, like they become magnetic and you want to be around them. And you see someone that's like a little bit down, dropping their head, not smiling. And you're like, fuck, man, he's not having a good time.
How do you think you get that aura?
I was thinking about this the other day actually, because I'm like trying to figure out like how to get back to as happy as I've been in the past. I'm like, how do you do that? And I feel like I've set the bar pretty high, but I'm definitely not where I want to be when it comes to that. And I think there's a certain level of, like I said before, like with purpose you need a goal and you need to like push yourself towards that. And I've been thinking about this more and more, but I'm like, the more physical pain I put myself through, the happier I am. Like just looking back through my life, whenever I've like had something to like really find out kind of like who's inside kind of thing, like, you know, when you'd be training and there's like this gray area where you go from like pushing yourself to like how much is in here. And it's whatever that like little fine line is. And I think you get it with like athletes and people that push that limit is like you kind of figure out yourself a bit more on like a deeper level. And I don't know if you've been in that place, but when you really physically like, okay, how much do I actually have? And I feel like in those states leading out of that and then competing and doing stuff like that and being in that kind of like how far can you push yourself state is where I've got a lot of my happiness from. And I kind of miss it now because I haven't had it for a while. I'm trying to figure out to find things to do to put myself back in that.
Do you think it's the physical pain or do you think it's the recognition of progress?
I think it's the clarity that comes with the pain in a way. Like, you know, when you just like this, again, it comes back to this, like you're not thinking about anything else, are you? You're kind of like clear and just like.
You're so present because all you're worried about is that pain.
Is what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like not just physical. Obviously, when you compete in something as well, it like brings up that emotion of like pushing yourself past like what you think is actually possible.
Yeah. Well, I guess pain's only relative to what pain you've experienced in the past. And so maybe what happens with the more pain we endure, the more confidence we gain because we've overcome stronger pains.
You know what it's felt like.
And so like Ryan Holiday, I talk about this a lot, but like your stoicism approach of the obstacle is the way. The hard time is the only way. The only way forward is through. And if we want to build this character that we're proud of, that when we look in the mirror, we're just shocked and we're jumping at the bits with who looks back. The obstacle is the only way. The pain is the only way forward through that and to achieve that. And, you know, this concept around like calm in the chaos. It's like calm in the chaos. The only way you can become calm in the chaos is that the chaos doesn't feel like chaos. So the only way you can make that chaos not feel like chaos is to go through more chaos. So then you're calm in the chaos because you become at peace with the hard time. And this is why when you look at a baby cries when it gets vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate, that's the worst amount of pain that it's been through. And then you look at someone that's been on the front line at war, with all due respect to all of our soldiers, they're not fazed when they break a wrist or their car gets crashed into because they were dodging bullets. And pain is only relative to what you've experienced in the past. So to become more calm, the only way to do that, you can't click your fingers and become more calm. You need to endure the pain. And so flipping your thought process when you're in a low time of this is a cost to become more calm and to handle hard times easier allows you to go through the hard time easier.
But it's also figuring out how you get out of that time. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's tricky, man, because even when you're like conscious of where you're at, like that's one of the hardest things for me sometimes. I'm like, I know my life's amazing. I know I'm loved. I know I am doing cool stuff. I'm in a cool place. Like life is good. And I'm like, why aren't I as happy as like should be? And I question that a lot. And I'm like self-aware of it. And then it annoys me that I'm like self-aware of it enough to like even be like implementing things to change it, but still kind of like figuring it out. You know what I mean? Because I guess it's like anything, you kind of do all these different things and you kind of like, what's the right one? And like, what's the right path to go down? And like, where do I actually get most fulfillment, happiness, joy out of like this experience it's life? And I think when you're conscious of that and you're trying to actively change it, it's easy to get out of that. Is this the right path, and start looking forward, or wasn't that the right thing by looking back? Like you said before about like being present, and talks about, I heard this thing the other day, I fucking love it, but it goes what does it go? Sadness lives in the past, anxiety lives in the future. Everything you need and want is right here, right now. And it's like, take a breath, look where you are, look who's around, and be present. And don't just get so caught up in what's going to happen. But it's so hard to like shut that voice off. And for so many people, like you can preach, I'll do this or do that. But it's like, you actively need to go like, I need to find my why behind what I want to do. And that, I guess, will push you down the path of figuring yourself out to make it better. Because I think you talked about this as well. Like no matter which path you go down, there's going to be hard things. Like you might as well go down the hard track that actually has a good ending. If people go like, you say you get lazy and tired and do this, it's like there's cost to everything. And it's like, go down the thing that's actually harder now and better later, not easier now, harder later.
What I've been thinking about on this topic of happiness is I think it all comes down to connection. And so I think it's a connection to self. How's your relationship with you? Your connection to others. How are you connected with people in your life? Romantic, platonic, group, tribe, whoever that is. And then a connection to a purpose, because that's where the fulfillment lies. If we tick those 3 connection boxes, we're in a pretty good space. If we are really connected with ourselves, connected with others, and connected to something we're striving towards, that's pretty cool. But then there's another layer on top of this. And because I've had times in my life where I've been connected to self, connected to others, and connected to a purpose, but I hadn't been through enough shit. So what happened was I would get bothered easy. So I could be connected to all of these things, but there would still be things that would kind of mess me up a little bit, and I'd get phased a little bit easier. And so what I'm realizing over time is, because I've gone through so much more shit and I've reconnected to myself, reconnected to others, and reconnected to a purpose, my phase level is so much higher. It's a lot harder to get me phased. I'm not bothered by things. Like a lot of hard times feel quite numb because I've been through so many hard times.
Do you think that kind of can go both ways though?
What do you mean?
Well, you said you feel numb. Like you said, they're numb to like feeling bad. But do you also think that might also numb a bit of the happiness you'd feel as well? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say it numbs happiness, but it could numb what you could define as like a victory or a success.
You don't get as phased by that as well. It's like the good days are still good, but it's like, it's like, again, coming back to, that's the tricky thing, man, where it's like when we talked about not being so reactive to your, like the reaction to something, like put distance between you and that, but you also put distance between good things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
However, what I will say though is, and this is something I haven't come to a conclusion with just yet, but we talk about the pendulum swing. If it swings one way, it's going to swing the other, right?
Knowing it's going to turn to shit when you're in the happy times as well.
Sorry?
Like kind of knowing it's going to turn to shit.
Knowing it's going to turn to shit. But the thing is as well though, is if you've experienced real low lows, when does the pendulum swing back? Because like if you've experienced a real low low, maybe it might take 12 months or 24 months for that thing to swing back to experience a high. Because I'm looking at things that I've doing quite well in now, where I get a win right now. And I get a win right now. And the reason I'm so euphoric is because I'm comparing a few years ago when I was sleeping on a mattress and my rent was overdue. And like, so it wasn't like an immediate pendulum swing. It was like a delayed one. And so I've still got enough fire in the low times to be able to enjoy the highs. Some of it doesn't feel quite real, I think, because my life's changed so quickly as well. But perhaps I recognize that the only way, again, obstacles the way, the only way to experience a high is through the low. But maybe depending on how low your lows have been, you could, I don't know, you don't need to be as reactive and as feeling as deeply with the low times.
I feel what you mean. I think it's one of those things, it's just actively knowing that anything that can bring you great joy can also bring you great sadness. And those two emotions, even though they're either end of the spectrum, are on the same plane. And know that like if something like your wife, your kids, everything, like they make you feel a certain way, like them taken away, that on reverse. But that's with everything you get is this job and you have so much excitement. And that's why people are so like can be so scared of love. And that's why I was terrified of love, man, because I got my heart ripped out with my first girlfriend. And I was like, I don't want her to have the control over me that she does. Like for 2 years, man, if she was happy, I was happy. If she was talking to me, I was happy. If she wasn't, like distraught, not like just not it at all. And then going through that at a young age, and then her and my mum became really good friends because I was 16, she was 15 when we met, and mum always wanted a daughter. So when I had a girlfriend, mum had a daughter, and they connected really well. And like, it was so lovely to see that because she didn't get as much love from her parents as she could have. Mum is just the biggest caring person you ever met in your life. Like she just loves looking after people and being that caring person. So she fell in love with my girlfriend at the time, and they became good friends. Anyway, me and my ex things didn't happen right. And it was all her just acting out of not being loved properly, not understanding how to give it. So then when she received it, she did some like questionable stuff, but I was also young and wouldn't have helped it either. But some bad stuff happened that really messed me up. But then my mum and her stayed really good friends. And this went on for years and years and years. And we'd broken up and got back together, and there was all this bad stuff that had happened. But my mum would always be like, oh, she's like my daughter, I don't want to get involved. But imagine the first woman you've ever loved being your mum, and then the second one that's completely messed you up, which is now best friends with your mum. And there was one point I got kicked out of home when I was living with her because they were going through a divorce. And my ex-girlfriend moved in 4 days after I got kicked out of my home from my mum. And you imagine that like psychological warfare you go through in trying to see everyone's view of that. And I look at it now, bro. I'm like, you both just needed love. You were like, you felt a bad way. I just took myself out of it and go, you're doing this for good reasons. I would have liked it not to happen, but it made me understand myself and like that reactive emotion to like, and then people saying, oh, you have every right to be pissed off. I'm like, why would I want to be pissed off, man? I have every right to just be happy for them and just know, well, what they did wasn't, I don't agree with it, but you're doing it. And then again, let it go and just be happy with two people who are like, at least they've kind of got each other in a way. And me and my mum have the best relationship. Even that ex, I'll go around there sometimes. I don't think she lives with her now. It's literally on and off to this day. Not shitting you. And I'll go back there and like walk into my house and my ex-girlfriend will be there from like when I was a kid. And I'm fine with it. We're cool, man. Like we're actually cool. So I wish her all the best. But it just made me realize that you can get so hyped up and all this emotion because it's like love has that, and then to go through that and realize that it can mess you up so much that I got terrified of it and didn't. I reckon 6.5 years I went through. When you said numb, that's what made me like think about that, because I would see people and date people, but I wouldn't emotionally get invested in it because I didn't want to feel that pain again. So I was just on the surface. And like, it's not like I didn't like these girls I was dating. Like they're all lovely and I enjoyed all of it, but I never properly like loved for a long time because I was like, I don't want to get hurt again. I don't want to get dragged down and have someone control how I feel. But I think that's what's happening now is no one wants to go all in. And there's so many options in the dating scene now, and there's so many beautiful fit people around that everyone just wants to have this like kind of fun fling until it gets to a point where you're like, okay, you're getting invested or I'm getting invested. I don't want to be hurt because it sucks, but also don't want to, like, it's already pretty good. So why would I risk getting really badly hurt by putting all of myself in? I feel like that, like on the Gold Coast, man, I feel like the dating scene is just a big game of just people like trying to have a bit of fun and then go do whatever.
I think it's the lens of the grass is always greener and there's always a more perfect person for you. And if you tie that with not wanting to be heartbroken and realizing that like the hardest thing to go through is the heartbreak. Yeah. you go, oh, you trick yourself, because I was there too.
Yeah.
Like, and I have to catch myself in it. I go, you trick yourself that there's going to be better people. You don't look at all the good. You look at maybe something that's bad. It's not a red flag, but it's something that's not perfect in this person. And you go, oh, no, like there's better out there. But it's like tying in this fact of the grass is always greener, but also you just don't want to be put in that vulnerable position because it can be really hurt. But you also mentioned, telling your story about your first girlfriend. That's a crazy story.
Hey?
You said in a video, I believe, I remember hearing it. You said you don't forgive them for them, you forgive them for you.
Yeah.
Just like you need to get over it for you. Yeah. Like forgive them. Don't hang on to this, not because you want to make them feel better. Like you need to free up some space to let other stuff in.
Imagine carting that around all the time. Like imagine hating like so many different people for different reasons, and like they don't know. Maybe they do, but they don't care. They're living their life. Think of all the people that you are actively putting negative energy into through not liking them, through shit that doesn't matter. And you can just take that out. And I always say, like, I would always forgive people for myself because I don't want to carry that around. What you've done sucks, but me carrying around is just going to keep hurting me, keep making me lose energy into something that doesn't matter, working me up. Like that'll come and bleed into the rest of your life. It's like, no matter what they've done, get over it. Like move on. And I watched a video the other day and it talked about this kid was drink driving and he crashed into a car and he ended up, I think he killed the husband and their kid. So it was a couple with a kid and he killed, I think, the husband and the child, and he went into a coma and he went into hospital, and the wife would come in every day and apparently would just like yell at, like he wasn't conscious, but she would just yell at this person that was in a coma, like, you like taken so much from me, you've done so much. And she kept coming in every day and then she started to calm and she stopped yelling and she just sat there. And then eventually the kid came out of the coma and they ended up being friends, and then she would invite him over for dinners and stuff, and like she forgave him for her and he would be the only other person that would be going through, like he's just taken 2 lives of this woman. Like he's the only person where his emotions of like sadness would somewhat match hers. So they needed each other. And I guess in a way I looked at my mum and my first girlfriend as like they both kind of went through similar things and they kind of just needed each other. And I took myself out of that and stopped throwing anger at it or getting annoyed for that, and just sort of like, you guys kind of need each other right now. And yes, some fucked up stuff happened to me when we were younger, but you were just acting out of a place of your parents didn't give you the proper love that you deserved. And I got that. So I knew how to deal with love better. So it's like, why am I going to get angry at you for not being taught something and then acting the way that you thought was best in the moment? And yes, it hurt, but get over it, like move on. It's so freeing, man. Like when you forgive people, like you're like, why was I carrying that around? Why did I have that in my body? And you can forgive anyone at any moment for anything they've done. And it's, again, do that for you, not for them. They won't know if you forgave them. Only you'll know. And it's like, do it. You can do it right now. Like listening to this, think of a person in your life that has done something to you that you look as being negative, and just think, they probably did that because they're going through something really hard. And if you actually knew, maybe reach out to them and be like, that's what I try and do now, mate. If someone's done something wrong to me, I'm trying what's going on, bro? Are you all good? Like, again, olive branch. Like most of the time you'll get back that maybe someone's just passed away. They've just lost their job. Their dog died. Like something has happened to them to make them reactive. And then instead of going, oh, this guy sucks, being like, are you all good, man? Like show a bit of empathy towards someone that's done you wrong and see how that will play out instead of just throwing anger back. And just seek. And then if that starts working, keep doing it.
Yeah, and then I guess if you don't do that, then you can spiral yourself down into low places because you start in this negative feedback loop. When you did go through that breakup and you were just witnessing all of this, you mentioned you did some bad stuff. It's Monday morning, and you know what that means? It means that I just got my Papa Macros delivery for the week, and Papa Macros has been an absolute game changer for me, and let me tell you why. If you guys have been following along, you would know that I am doing a Hyrox competition this month, so with the increase in training load, I also need to increase the amount of food that I'm eating, but when you tie that in with all the other commitments I have, like running this show, I only have so many hours in a day, and Papa Macros has been a game changer for me because I'm getting these meals that I can rest easy knowing that they're nutritious, they're delicious, but extremely convenient as well. But let's have a look in this box and see what we have for dinner and lunch this week. Some of my favorites from this week is the chimichurri steak. We have the rump steak and jasmine rice, the salmon poke bowl. This one is amazing. The Cajun chicken. And the great thing about all of these meals is the portion sizes are like no other. It is so hard to find a meal prep company that actually gives you enough food to make you feel full. And Papa Macros definitely doesn't shy away from that. So if you want to take the cooking out of your hands and still remain to have nutritious, delicious, and convenient meals, then look no further than Papa Macros. I love these things, and I'm sure you will too. So hit the link in the description or the show notes below, or go to papamacros.com.au and use the code Chris Griffin at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your entire order. Once again, hit the link in the description or the show notes below, or go to papamacros.com.au and use the code Chris Griffin at checkout. Let's get right back to the show. When all that stuff was going down, you had this anger and for your mum and your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like what bad stuff did you say? Did you go down a little bit of a spiral or?
Oh, it's just watching the two people that you've loved, like just treat you so badly. Like you get so angry, man. I was so angry at my mum. I was so angry at my ex-girlfriend, and seeing them kind of my mum and him my dad went through a divorce, and I kind of like somewhat was on my dad was being fair. My mum didn't agree. It was just like that kind of thing. And mum was kind of thinking I was taking sides, and it just, that got out of hand. And then the fact that your mum was already annoyed at you, kicked you out of your house, and then your ex-girlfriend moves in 4 days later. It's like, what do you feel from that? And I'm not trying to shit can my mum, because again, like I said, they needed each other. They were kind of hurting both the same way, because obviously my dad and my mum split up, me and the girlfriend split up. It's kind of like mother and daughter in a weird way, because she knew it for so long. So it's like, yeah, it was just, but I think the biggest point to that is, again, the only way is through. And I'm so happy that I went through all that, because emotionally, man, it was heaps. But I feel like, again, your perspective of what you felt when it comes to love and pain within that, it kind of gives you a better idea of understanding it and going through certain things. And then again, not becoming so reactive to things that happen in that sense. But yeah, it's funny, man. I think now, if anything, I just need to take my own advice. Like, it's funny, sometimes I watch back these videos I post and that will kind of go quite viral or hit a certain way. And I'm like, I really need to live that, because sometimes you stray off that. And it's like, no, I know what I need to do. I've said it. Like, it's the thing. And yeah, just take your own advice and sort of like practice what you preach, more or less. Typically,
if the video goes well and it's talking a lesson, it means it's probably pretty good. It's a pretty good lesson. It resonates with people. I want to talk about purpose and that area of life, like having something to strive towards. You mentioned just off air before that, like, you're just a little bit scattered with just some of the stuff in your life. Like, you've got heaps of things that you're working on, and you're just kind of in this phase where there might be like a little bit of something you really want to spark. Is that a challenge for you at the moment? Or
I think it comes back, because we were talking before about like growing a podcast and how hard it is. And like, I've been chipping away for a little bit now. And I guess with that, there's somewhat doubt in it. Like, it's even funny, like you chatted before about a video that you post on your page of me talking about like, don't sweat the small stuff. And it went really viral. And it was just it was weird to take on for me, because it's like, it gives kind of validity that what I'm saying actually has some weight to it and people agree and resonate with it. But like, I've never had anything go viral like that. So it's funny, like, I've been kind of talking at this thing, like doing the podcast, talking to people for X amount of time, and nothing's like really hit kind of thing. So you kind of get that self-doubt and that, like, is it working? Is it the right thing? Like, should I keep doing this? It's a lot of effort. There's not like, as money comes, there's no like much return there at all. But obviously I love it and enjoy it. I think that's why you should start a passion. But you definitely get that time of doubt where you're like, do I keep doing this? Is it worth doing? And then it was funny for you to post a video, and then I think it got like millions of views across your page, and then someone else picked it up and posted it as their first video, and it got like a total like 5.5 million views. And I'm like, okay, there must be something in that. And then it was funny because I reposted it. I think it got like 1,000 on my page. And I was like it left me just questioning why does certain things hit? Why don't they? And why, like, I've been talking at this thing for a long time. And then obviously I got your page because it was on the grow, but the first person to post on the other one, it just seemed like, I know, it's just that self-doubt kind of thing. And I think when you have that, you obviously you don't go through life with confidence. And I think I'm missing a bit of that confidence because I'm a bit uncertain about like, how do I want to grow this, or which direction do I want to take my life kind of thing. But
it's an interesting one. I got a, it's a bit of a long one, but it's a quote from Rami that I want to.
But do you find that like sometimes like you're going down a path and like you think about like, this is great, but do you ever have that point where you're like,
Definitely.
Is this the right thing kind of mentality?
The thing I ask myself, and I try to say to people that are posting stuff that isn't getting many views or engagement, they're trying to grow their audience. What I say to them is, because what happens is you post stuff, it doesn't get views, and then you tell yourself that it maybe isn't very good, or it's not aligned with you. A lot of people say this. They go, I realized the content I was posting isn't really for me. It's not really the right content, so I dropped off. And I say to them, I go, answer this. If every one of those videos that you said weren't for you, you didn't like, had 1 million views, would you keep posting them? And they go, yeah, I probably would. So, okay, so remove the numbers from this. You genuinely like the content. You think it's great. However, it's not getting any views. So you're tricking yourself that it's actually not good content for you. And I think if we play this long game and this approach of like being unapologetically you and putting out stuff that you're very passionate about, you love, the only caveat here is making sure that you're improving the content and changing it if it doesn't resonate. I think like making sure that there's an emphasis on content that you like, but also making sure that you're improving it from a social media perspective, I think is the ultimate key, because when you start to post stuff that's not for you and it gets views, this is when this imposter syndrome, this self-doubt, this fraud nature comes into your mind. And I think it just needs to be stripped back into you. But the thing I want to read, it's Rumi. I don't know specifically, I don't know if you know specifically who he is, but I was reading in preparation to this. I just felt like doing a bit of reflection before this conversation, because I know we always go deep when we talk, and I was looking back at my Vision Quest booklet, which is the retreat I went on. I don't know if you remember that. I went on this 7 day out in nature, off social media retreat, and it's called Vision Quest by Rick Cowley. It's finding purpose and meaning in your life. And anyway, this meditation started with a quote, and the meditation was on life purpose. And it's a bit long, but I think it's quite powerful. So life purpose. There is one thing in this world that you must never forget to do. If you forget everything else and not this, there's nothing to worry about. But if you remember everything else and forget this, then you'll have nothing in your life. It's as if a king has sent you to some country to do a task, and you perform 100 other services, but not the one he sent you to do. So human beings come to this world to do particular work. That work is the purpose, and each is specific to the person. If you don't do it, it's as though a priceless Indian sword was used to slice rotten meat. It's a golden bowl being used to cook turnips, when one filing of the bowl could buy 100 suitable pots. It's a knife of the finest tempering nailed into a wall to hang things on. You say, but look, I'm using the dagger. It's not lying idle. Do you hear how ludicrous that sounds? For a penny, an iron nail could have bought to serve the same purpose. You say, but I spend my energies on lofty enterprises. I studied jurisprudence and philosophy and logic and astronomy and medicine and all the rest. But consider why you do these things. They are all branches of yourself. Remember the deep root of your being, the presence of your Lord. Give your life to one who already owns your breath and your moments. If you don't, you'll be exactly like the man who takes a precious dagger and hammers it into his kitchen wall for a peg to hold his dipper gourd. You'll be wasting valuable keenness and foolishly ignoring your dignity and your purpose. It's full on, but I think when you look at how most people live their lives, they trick themselves thinking that they're busy and they're not sitting idly by, but they're not doing the thing that they're actually set out to do. And people might say, but like, I don't know what that thing is. But what you do know is things that you don't like and that are not your purpose, and you're still filling your days with all of those things as opposed to trying new things in the hopes to find something that's actually going to make you tick. It's like this pursuit of trying to find the thing in our life that springs us out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
But people don't start that pursuit in the first place.
Yeah, it's just there. And then I think even as well, man, on top of that as well, when people find that pursuit and then they almost go so hard at it that then they don't even take in the present moment either. Like, it was funny. I started like cycling and running to the studio recently because I'm like, I just want to train a bit more. And it kind of contradicts like my entire life being an athlete, where it's like the fastest way somewhere is always the best. And I like obviously it was taking a lot longer, but I kept bumping into people I knew, and I kept like really kind of taking the day a bit slower. Like I'd get a coffee, or I'd go to the beach, or I'd meditate, or I'd go for a swim, and I'd bump into all these people, and it just became this like super nice process of just like either riding or running into work. And I think like, yeah, when I go in the car, it's like I just put music on and obviously drive there, and you're kind of there and back. And it's like you can get there quicker and easier, but is it better? And that comes back to like everything you're doing. It's like just because it's taking a bit longer, is that a bad thing? It's like if you're actually present in what you're doing and what you're doing you enjoy, shouldn't you want it to take longer? It's like all of us, they want to go from A to B so quickly, and then they get there and go, I didn't really enjoy the process from A to B. Like I didn't sit in it. I didn't feel it. I wasn't present in all these cool little moments that got me to the promotion or got me to the girl or whatever it may be. And you kind of go, no, enjoy. Like you think about when you never know how many like first times you're going to have with something. Like there's always going to be the last first time you do something. And think about that and think about, well, I'm going to enjoy it when I'm doing it, because you don't know if it's going to ever happen again or if this was it. And I think I'm trying to be more grateful of just like everything when it comes to being in the present moment and all of it that's happening. Because like everyone always says like you're going to look back when you're older, and I'm like, look where you're living, look what you're doing, look who's around you. Like we become so complacent in our lives. Like, for example, I remember when just moving to Queensland was like, oh my God, like that got me so excited. And then you get to the place you want to go, and then the traffic's bad, or this happened, or I'm like, even today when I was saying I'm so busy, and I'm like, that's great. You literally created something where now you're like, there's so much going on, it's hectic to the point where it's almost an annoyance. But you think back of when you looked at that was the goal, man. Just to have a studio was the goal, let alone have it filled with people doing cool shit and taking photos and doing gym workouts and stuff. But it's like how you can kind of reframe that. And I think I'm trying to get more conscious of doing that. Like even this podcast has honestly helped me because I've been a bit more reflective on my thoughts. But it's like everything that you go through, you can flip and look at it any way you want to. So I was like, look at it a better way if you can, because it's just going to make life way fucking easier. So as I'm saying this, I'm like generally this is shit I need to do as well. Like as I'm saying, I'm like, oh man, I need to, again, practice what I preach.
You wrote, I can't cry about having a lot on my plate when my goal was to eat.
Exactly, yeah.
That's so good.
But how often do you do that? Like moving to the Gold Coast, getting a studio, setting it up, and then you do it and you're like, shit, man, this is actually kind of hard. But I think that's the thing. It's like there's always going to be hard things. And then we're going to look back in life, because how often do you look back for something and now you might look back and go, man, that was great. But in the time you're like, I was stressed, there was heaps going on. But I look back 5 years in your life and look at a situation where in the moment you probably thought it sucked. And now look back at it now and think of like, I would do anything to go back and just feel that for a day. Feel that emotion, be in that moment, talk to that friend, see that girl, like do all of that. I would give anything. And you're in that right now, right fucking now. So yeah, exactly. This honestly, man, even saying this has made me feel it more, because like coming in, it was funny. I'm like, I almost said no to doing this because I honestly didn't feel that good. I was like, I don't know if I've got much to give at the moment. I don't know if I'm in a right headspace to chat. Like I haven't even been doing many episodes of my pod just because I'm like, felt like I've not been me. And like I said, I don't want to show up on a podcast, especially one that I know yours obviously gets a lot of listens, and bring like a negative energy or just be fucking down for the sake of being down. So this has been good. This has been a nice like
dude,
switch.
So good.
Yeah.
And when we think about it, you know, when I asked you, you said, yeah, okay, like I'll see if I've learned anything since the last one.
Yeah.
Like it's automatically putting in, oh fuck, have I even grown?
Well, that's what I mean. And I was like, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm like, I've been in a bit of a funk lately with just, again, where is my happiness? And Like that's why I started like training at a class gym to like meet more people, and I've been like putting more effort in the business. I've been training pretty hard. Like I want to get fit. I want to like, I've got momentum, and I feel a shift of momentum changing, but I'm still not quite there. And it's trying to figure out what that thing is that I probably need to put a bit more energy into for myself, and how that's going to like reciprocate in feeling better. So just figuring it out. But this has made me feel a lot better, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's great, dude. I just look at that thing and go, like, it's hard to know what that thing is that makes us tick. But it's a lot easier to look at all the things that we don't like and try and remove those, because in order to have free space to invite new things in, we need to get rid of the shit that we don't like that's clogging up all the space.
Yeah.
And so it's just, instead of doing an assessment on all the things you're striving towards, do an assessment of all the things you think are holding you back. It's a powerful frame to be in, because what you'll find is the reason you can't find the things that you want is because there's no space in your mind and in your body to invite them in. And this is why when you, like, you know, I got asked a question about like full-time or side hustle. Like, should you be more risky and go full-time, or should you have a side hustle and build it up on the side? And I'm like, well, look, it just depends like how quickly you're trying to get there. Because when you're like when you're doing it on the side, you are distracted so much, because whenever you're working on the side, you feel guilty for working on the thing on the side because you're not doing the main project. But the problem there is, because you're not doing the main project and you're feeling guilty about doing the side project, you're actually not doing anything at a good level. So you're clogging up your mind and your space, leaving no room for any more creativity, any more sparks of interest in your life. And yeah, I think ultimately trying to find those things that make us tick is what we're all striving towards. But the first step a lot of the time can be to remove some of the shit that we don't like. It's quite a reflective time of the year. Do you find that Christmas and New Year's is quite reflective for you?
I think just, the New Year's point is like, what did I learn? What happened this year? Like, what was different? It's always like a point in time when you try and remember like what happened. It's like that changing kind of thing. It's like, oh, new year, new me. But like a lot of people really kind of live that for at least the first 2 weeks or so. But it's funny how you talked about what you remove and what you keep. I came up with this concept. I'm going to rush through it because I feel like, you know, when you say the same thing over and over again, but even though if you think it is a good point, but just comes back.
Say it, the new listeners.
This is true. It comes back to you with saying like what you remove and what you keep. And you know the game Snakes and Ladders?
Yeah.
I came up with this concept that like life is just a game of snakes and ladders, and you control how many snakes and how many ladders you have in your life. And you're saying like the negatives and positives. It's like, if you want to get to said goal, how many ladders are you going to like land on to take you to that next level? So if you put, I go to the gym, I have good relationships with my family, I'm eating healthy, I'm doing breath work, I'm doing all these positive. You've got a lot of ladders getting you to that goal. If you're drinking, if you're around toxic people, if you're eating unhealthy, that's a snake, man. So life's random. You roll the dice every day. You don't know what's going to happen. There's so many different factors. But if you put so many ladders in your life, if you land on 6, that's a ladder. That's going to the gym or whatever. You go to the next level. You land on another ladder, you keep going. Where if you keep putting these snakes in, you go out for a week and you get hammered and fucking start a fight, you're going backwards. And so it's like, how long does that take? I'm like, how long do you want it to take? You completely control your board game of your snakes and your ladders. So set up with more ladders and you'll go further, faster.
And then there's more momentum with that as well. It's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
It just compounds. It just gets bigger and bigger. It rolls faster and faster.
That kind of comes when you say the compound thing. I was thinking about when we were talking about like podcast success and putting out content and all that. It's like, it's not a linear progression. Do you know who Matt Rife is? Like the stand-up comedian? Like you look at him and he's like, a couple of years ago, man, I was about to retire. Like I was done. He's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. And then he put something up on TikTok or Instagram and he blew up. Now he's one of the biggest fucking comedians in the world. That wasn't a linear progression. That was like nothing, world famous.
He sold 600,000 tickets on his tour.
And that's what I mean. He was about to quit. Think about someone listening to this right now that has a goal, a passion, a job, and they really want to grow it, or they really want to go further with it, or they're like, I've been working at this for so long. Just think about someone like Matt Rife and be like, one day it just happened. And they look at all that hard work and effort and everything you've put in for that day, and you get there. And it's like that day could be any day. And it's just like, stop looking at it as like, I've put so much effort in this is never going to work, and go, this is going to work. I'm going to keep grinding at this and like figure out new ways to maybe make it work. Like even one thing you gave me was like advice for the content. He's like, man, you just got to like do things to make it nicer. There's like little things that you can always do that are better, like those little 1%. And it's like when you hear someone say, oh, I've done everything. I'm like, there's always more, man. Like there's always more you can do in anything. So it's like focus on that and then just know that like fuck, one day it can happen.
And then the minute you tell yourself that there is nothing more you can do, guess what? You're not going to find any more stuff.
Yeah.
There's not going to be anything else.
You're not looking.
There's not going to be anything else for you to do. So there was a thing that I wrote that I want to read again, which was in this book. It was actually quite cool to look back at this Vision Quest booklet because I don't actually look back on it. And all the things that I'm referring here were things I wrote down during the meditations. So the way that the layout would work is we would do hours of meditation. We'll do a meditation for every module in the book. So before we answered the question, we would listen to like a 20, 30-minute meditation. It was like a meditation with talking and it was a whole thing. But I would find that I would have all these downloads and these writings in the meditation itself. I'd pull out the pen, open my eyes and start writing while the meditation is going and he's talking. And anyway, this one was the exercise we're about to do was perfect average day. And I love this. I love this so much because like people want to do map out their dream life. But what actually people ask me what success looks like. I'm like, what's an average Tuesday look like? But I'm going to read this thing that I wrote during this meditation. So many amazing people climb Mount Everest every year, but none of them ever live on the peak. The conditions are too extreme. It's not sustainable. Your life is not about the peak. It's about what you do every day. That's your life. It's about your perfect average day that matters. Does your average day inspire you? Does your average day fulfill you? Do you get to the end of the day and you're satisfied? And do you go to bed inspired for your work tomorrow? Awakening to your greatest dreams is wonderful, but awakening to your greatest average life is fulfillment.
Yeah, I love that.
How does your average Tuesday look? I think if you look at someone's average midweek day, that's how successful they are.
It's crazy, man, because it comes back to my day-to-day looks pretty good. And that's why I said I get a bit annoyed at myself that like I'm not as happy because it's like perception from, it's funny when so many people see your life and they go, man, that's like cool what you do. And it is cool. Like I think I have a pretty cool life. I'm around good people, like try and inspire, I try and help, but it's like, what's that missing bit? But I'm like you said, my Tuesday is fucking cool. Like you go to the beach, you go to a gym, you're around good people. I work in a cool studio, they're creative. You might do a podcast. You like constantly connecting with people in a nice place, in a warm place. I have great friends. I live with good people. I'm around dogs all the time. Like, you know, it's like, it's all so good. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out like what that thing is to really like spark it. Because it's like, there's nothing that's missing in a way.
Do you think maybe because then it might tie back into the progress factor that you would like it to be quicker? Or like you've been, this concept around, you said the Matt Rife thing, but it's like you've been at it for so long. Because when I look at it and if we strip it right back to that connection to self, connection to others, connection to a purpose and something to strive towards, the perfect day needs to encompass all of these. So then what I progressed through that is I wrote what my dream day looks like, like a dream average Tuesday. And it's like encompassing everything. And so my things was like trying to encompass all of the pillars. And what was powerful about it is then when I looked at what my dream day was, like there's probably little parts that were different. Like one of the things I wrote in the dream day was like, I go into my room, light an incense and start preparing for my podcast conversation this afternoon. My guest today is a caveman that lives out by the rock at Uluru. He has 0 social media following, but my friend knew him and introduced me to him, and I just wanted to sit down with him and have a chat because I was curious. And I was like, okay, I'm a really curious guy. I want to be able to just chat to some random dude that's happy as fuck out by the rock in Uluru. And like that piece there excites me. That lights off this fulfillment piece of me being really curious and being able to have access to some random caveman dude. And I look at it and I go, when I can get really clear on what that is, I can start striving towards that. Because again, my dream day and my day right now is pretty similar. Like I fucking live a lot very similar to what I do, minus the kids and all of that I want to have in my life. But like perhaps it's like there's something that's going to bring this extra spark in you, and we just don't know what that is. But it's an interesting concept. I feel like it's the biggest challenge for most people.
Yeah, it's to be happy in kind of complacency to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously you want to grow everything, but again, it comes back to being happy in that moment, but then also like striving for more and like what that more is. And also knowing like you'll go down that path of what you think, and then eventually you'll want to do something different again. And it's like constantly, I guess, like in a way reinventing yourself or reinventing your why or purpose of where you're going.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. Like I think a big part is like with where I'm at is I know I want to set the shit up, but I want to travel like a lot. Like I always had this thing that I just wanted to, and that was a big reason why I created the podcast, because I wanted to travel around the world and chat with people, like meet new people that had different experiences. And I obviously got to do that with the World Cup racing, and I had like a network of people from like France, Austria, like New Zealand, wherever. And you get this different perspective on how people live in their lives. Obviously it's somewhat similar with the racing, but it's still new places and new people. So I think there's part of that still in my heart where I'm like, I don't want to just be in a box in Burleigh heads talking to people. It's like, it feels obviously just being in Australia is limited. So there's like this little voice in the back of my head. It's like, just go travel, man. Take a camera. Like see where you end up. Like just go do that. And I guess I'm in the process now of trying to make that a reality for next year. And I think if I do that, that feels like a lot of where like I should move and do that. But it's funny because before I got the studio, I had the freedom to do that. And I was like, I want to make a studio. Like that was just what controlled my mindset, was just like build a studio, get it. Like I went down to Byron in my van to like get away and chill. And I was literally in the back on my phone looking at warehouses that I could like hire out and lease. So I had that.
You had a broken neck at the time.
Yeah. And I was like, I look back at that and I literally had no commitments, nothing. I should have gone to Bali, gone on a retreat or something. But instead I thought it was a good idea to lease a studio and start building a podcast room. Like this is a month after my spinal cord injury. Because I think, and it comes back to how I said I always felt very broken and lost, and just people I think felt sorry for me. So I was like, if I build a studio, people focus on the studio and I'll stop focusing on me being broken. And I think that was a big part of like, I wanted purpose again. I felt very like hurt, injured boy that people are all like, oh, are you okay kind of thing. And I get that it's like all out of love and everything, but me being in that was like next thing. And I think I talked to you about this, but in the podcast room, I remember I was there one night and it was like 10:30 at night and I was by myself gluing foam onto the walls and I was just done, man. I was done. I think I'd probably been there like all day working. My nervous system was just wrecked and I think the glue was like making me high and I was like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Like you should be in like a retreat somewhere instead of doing this shit by yourself, trying to like build a business a month into a spinal cord injury recovery. I was like, that mindset of just like, man, just chill. Like rest, look after yourself, heal, and then go on to the next. And I guess it's that whole thing about, again, the fastest way from A to B is not always the best. And I was looking at the fastest way from like being an athlete, having purpose, to owning a studio and creating that and having purpose. And in the process, I just ran my body into the ground, like mentally, emotionally, physically. I was just like pretty cooked by the start of that. And you kind of like, I was lucky enough to have good people around me, but if I could go back, man, like take your time with healing yourself and don't rush into something because you feel like you need, like, again, I was like, it was needy. I didn't want a studio. I needed it. I needed to have purpose. I need like, and that's what went into building it. And looking back now, it's like, you just need to want to do something. And like, those things are so different and so powerful if you do it the right way. But yeah.
You need to want something. It's fascinating. And I think when you're talking about this need concept, we look at like really successful business people that have like sold companies before. And someone said to me, I forgot who it was, but they said, if you are truly passionate and love the business that you're doing, don't ever sell it. And we all in business chase this exit, want to make this money through this sale. But typically what you'll find is you exit something and then you're like, fuck, what now what? And it's like this thing where you're going, okay, well, when we actually strip it back on what we need something to strive towards. We need connection with self, connection with others. and that fulfillment piece is in that thing that you love, that you get up every day and you strive towards and you're progressing towards, because that's the thing you truly want to do. And then you like sell it and you don't have that thing. And then there's that hole in your life where you go, okay, I've got all this money, but what does it mean?
Yeah.
And just being able to kind of hang on to the things and do more of the things that actually fill our cup and that actually make us tick. And if that's business for some people, then maybe the sale isn't the thing that they should chase. Or if it's something else for someone, like honing in on those things. And yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle, I do think. Do you think there's anything, like, do you think that is your biggest challenge at the moment? Or do you think there's, like, what would you say your biggest challenge is now?
I just guess figuring out where I really get my happiness from.
Yeah.
And knowing that like self-love needs to come first, and like really looking after you, and like that should at least give you a clear vision of what it may be. Like you're not going to look at the right direction if you kind of don't know which way to look, if you're not giving yourself that love. So like give that and go, okay, I feel good now. Because like you don't want to make a decision when you feel bad. You want to feel good and then go, okay, I feel good now. I've put energy into me. What do I actually want? Which way do I want to go? And then go that way. But until that happens, you kind of, yeah, you can be a bit lost with it all. But again, like I think I'm putting in momentum to go that way. But yeah, it's just so funny, man. Sometimes like I have friends and stuff come up and they're like, oh, you're killing it and this and that, and like this perception of who you are online. And then people kind of meet you, and like I said, I never like to project negativity, but fuck man, have some shit days, and you kind of just like that just don't talk about it, don't bring it up, don't put it out there. And it makes me most question, because I'm like, fuck, is someone that I come across as super happy online, and I know I go through shit, I look at someone that fucking is probably putting out negative stuff. I'm like, man, what are they going through? And how do you kind of like help get across to them? And I was going to ask you, because this is another thing, like the more vulnerable I think you be, the more you open up. And I don't think this is a bad thing, but it's also like a pressure that comes with like being someone that comes onto a podcast and be vulnerable or puts out vulnerable content, is people are then vulnerable towards you, which is great. And I love it. But for example, like a girl messaged me like a week ago and was just like, hey, I listened to your story about how you went through like a suicidal state and how you got out of it, how you're so in love with life. Like, I want to end my own life. Like, can you give me some advice? And it's like, fuck, man, like that. Like, I'm not trained. I don't know exactly what to do. I'm going to give you what I did to get better, like, or what I think's the right thing to come out of this. But like the more you kind of be vulnerable like that, more people are going to come out, and you end up playing this role of like obviously you're trying to help people, but then like emotionally, it's like you've got to put yourself into that situation where it's like, how do I help this person? I don't want to say the wrong thing. I want to say the right thing. I'm going to say what I went through. But I think, yeah, like I've noticed the more I've put out there like that, the more that comes back, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. And I love that I can create a safe space for someone to be that open and honest, and hopefully you can help like pull them back from the edge or wherever they are. And hopefully one of these viral TikTok clips or one of these videos can like hit someone and really impact them in a positive way. And you don't know what's actually getting through and what's helping. Like you'd hope that if you're getting a few messages from people, that at least behind that is like another group of people that just don't reach out, but it's done something. And when you say like you're in public and people come up and they're like, oh man, like, thank you, like this helped. And I guess that's probably another place of like where you get fulfillment and happiness, like helping other people and just like putting out like a good message that, hey, like life's all good if you look at it a certain way. And I know that I go through shit as well, so I get it. And I think that's when you become more relatable to people, because it's like when you come across as this person that like is always happy or always just on this level, it's like they don't have bad days. And you're like, nah, like we all have bad days. I just feel like I've created tools to help me get out of them quicker. And maybe this could help you. Like I hope it helps you. And then when you say you get those messages, like, oh, okay, it's a net positive out there from doing this.
I think the thing about the messages, it's, yeah, people are very open and honest, and every day I get these massive messages that are quite vulnerable. And what I've had to teach myself is, because it's still new for me as well, last 18 months, really receiving these. And what I've had to teach myself is what you're putting out to the world is enough, and you can't put an expectation on yourself to get back to these messages and these people. And I try and get back to as many as I can, but if I'm not in the right spot and I read something and I go, I can't think of an answer, and I just go, that's a bit much, then I can't respond to all of them. And it's a longevity play where I go, okay, if I get something on the street, if there's people that are building up the courage to message me that I've already made an impact on their life, like I want to do my best to respond. And sometimes when people see me on my phone and I'm reading DMs and they notice I don't respond to some, it shocks them a bit. It's like, well, you can't just leave that unresponsive. You can't just not respond to that message. And I go, look, if I respond to every message, I couldn't look at any of them because like it'll fuck me up more than and then I won't be able to do the thing which actually makes the impact at a mass scale.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to just recognize that. But yeah, vulnerability is hard, but I also think it makes people come close to you and you're more of a human, you're not a robot. And I think a lot of people online just share all of their highlights and nothing else. And it's hard to see them as a real person. They're just this person that's got a dream life and, has all these followers online and is living the modern day dream and they don't show any of their challenges. It doesn't really feel real. And if you're playing a long game, I think finding that balance and being able to post some stuff that's vulnerable is important.
That comes back as how this all started with what I was saying when I was vulnerable and then all the people like felt for me. I was like, oh, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the thing I balance with all the time. Like I always want to show up in a certain way, but like you said, that vulnerability is actually what people resonate with. Like my best video on TikTok was talking about like a relationship thing and saying like when you need to let go and that like the house is on fire and it's burning down, like get out kind of thing. And I remember when I recorded it, the girl that I was working for me at the time, she was like, I'll just interview you and ask you questions about these things that keep obviously getting traction. And I didn't want to do it, man. I was like, I don't want to record this right now. Like I feel shit. She's like, no, it'll be easy, it'll be fun. And we did it. And the very first question she asked me went viral. And it was just because it was real. Like you could hear and see that I was not pumped. And people resonate with that. They feel that. And like you said, everyone's a robot. Everyone's playing this version of their best selves. And I think on a podcast, when you actually go like, nah, like life is great, but it also has some fucking shit times as well. Like let's not always broadcast that, but let people know that that's a real thing. And it's not always perfect, but here are some things that you could do every day that are making it better for you. It's making it better for me. Like I hate giving people issues without solutions. So it's like I'm going through some shit, but I'm also trying to sort it out by getting someone to work for me, going to the gym more, like having conversations like this, like eating. Like I'm actively trying and I'm trying to put that out to the world, but it's just that process of like getting back to that and actually like, honestly, man, like I was going to say, like I wasn't going to do this because of how I was feeling, but I was like, what would this do if it actually like went really well or you actually enjoyed it? And I was like, probably make me feel better, which it has. So it's like, it's that thing of like leaning into stuff that is probably scary in the moment or doesn't feel right in the moment. You go, why is that? And will I actually get something good out of it? For example, I got asked maybe 2 months ago to go speak at a school that I help with coaching, with like mountain bike coaching. And the teacher asked me, and I thought it was just for the class that I help teach, which is probably like 30, 40 kids. And I rock up and it's like a full blown assembly with like 350 people. And there's like Dean Lucas, key speaker. And I was like, this is, because I was terrified as a kid, man, to speak in front of people. Like I would be that kid that would be nervous and shaking, and I hated it. I hated it so much. And then when they asked me just to like go to a school, stand up in front of everyone and like do a speech, I was like, whoa, that brings back some like old traumas, memories, issues that I had. And I was like, I need to lean into that. I need to look at that and go, what emotion would I get if that went really well? I was like, I feel great because I kind of beat it. It was that fear that you can beat. And I went there and they literally gave me some questions. Like, we're going to have a guy ask you some questions, talk to the school. And it's the first time I stood in front of a crowd that big and my nerves didn't affect what I said. I just said, like I'm talking to you on the podcast now, what I wanted to say. And I was like, oh my God, that's the first time I've stood in front of a crowd of like that many people and actually just being me. And I was like, that's the feeling that you want to get from like going after something that was a fear or a phobia or something that you thought about and was just like, it would change the state of your body, and go, let's do that until we get good enough at it that I can do that and just be completely myself. And that was the first time I felt that. I was like, okay, I want to do more of this, I think. And I think that's probably another purpose part that could like sink in. Because if you felt that when you've just like, there's a fear that you've wanted to overcome and then you've overcome it and you go, okay, that's kind of what life's about. Like just not being scared of anything.
The thrill of something, and then you get to the end of it and you're like, oh, that was actually not as bad as, that was actually great.
Yeah, let's
it
do
was like
more.
some bad thing, but then all of a sudden it like unlocks this new avenue for you. It's powerful, but
and you realize you actually really enjoy it.
Mm.
It's that thing when like there's, again, it comes back to like, obviously if you can create a fear, like there's an equal part of happiness attached to that, or excitement. You just need to like go into it and, like you said, go through it.
I think just lean in to all the things you don't want to do. That discomfort is where the growth lies. But
Just think, why don't you want to do them? Why am I avoiding this thing? So like, I love this question, but what's something in your life that you are actively avoiding that you know you shouldn't be? Do you have one?
What's something in my life
you're actively avoiding that you know you shouldn't be?
I have to think about it. I don't know.
Mine's, like I said, talking on my phone, like doing stories and being more present online, because I know that's like, when I'm that version of me, I'm like projecting me. I know, like, when I'd ever do videos on my phone, I'd always be super happy. And I was like, I want to get that person across. And then I haven't been that way, so I haven't been doing them, and I'm actively not doing it. And I know, like you said, people buy from people. Like when people come into the studio to record or shoot or whatever, like I'm the best version of me. And people are like, oh, this has been great. Like this is so fun. It's so good. They don't get that unless they come in, but it's like, how do I project myself out? It's just like, it's online. It's talking about what we're doing. It's showing what we're doing. It's being more, be that person, be that brand. And I know I need to do that, and I'm actively not doing it because, again, coming back to the injury and the fear of like that thing, which I know is all bullshit as well. I'm aware that it's bullshit. I know what I need to do, but just need to start doing it.
It's a good question to lead the show on. What is something that you are actively putting off doing that you know you should be doing?
Yeah. And why?
And why? Ponder on that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, bro.
Easy, man.
If you guys enjoyed this and you're still listening, far out, listen to episode 8 of the Pocket Podcast. That was when Dean last came on the show, very early days. And also go and check out D&Ms with Dean. That is Dean's podcast. It's amazing. He has awesome guests on, and the conversations are great. Awesome host. So I'll leave all of his details in the show notes and the description below, so you can go and check that out for yourself. Was there anything else you want to say before we signed out, my friend?
No, just thanks for having me on, bro. Thanks for trying to push a good message, and yeah, just like I said, it's just trying to put out a net positive to the world.
I think we've done that.
Yeah.
I think it was good. Raw, open conversation as mates. It was very good.
And if you need a studio, the Nest Burleigh has a fucking sweet photography wall, and I'll be there smiling.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
Go and check it out. I'll leave it in the description and the show notes below. We are going to sign out for this week, but I'll see you next week.